It's likely across the far east and southeast, even as we continue into the afternoon. Still fairly breezy, still feeling chilly too. Highs reaching around 12 degrees Celsius. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can become our biggest winner this year. First, you could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxury vehicle comfortably sleeps four, has its own fitted kitchen and bathroom areas, and comes complete with fitted awning and bicycle rack. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Dramatic scenes in a North London street as police move in to arrest members of an organised crime gang. Inside their vehicle, evidence of a multi-million-pound trade in phone theft. A large number of stolen smartphones are discovered, all wrapped in tinfoil to block any phone signal and prevent their owners tracing them. After a year-long investigation, Scotland Yard says it has now dismantled the criminal operation that they believe is responsible for smuggling more than 40,000 stolen smartphones over to China. Officers have now recovered thousands of stolen smartphones as their investigation continues. Many of the handsets stolen in street robberies end up in shops like this. Officers recovered multiple stolen phones and arrested 2 men on suspicion of money laundering after finding £40,000 in cash.
So my warning to people that are involved in this criminal enterprise, whether it be shop workers, the shopkeepers, or even the faceless enterprise businessmen who own multiple different venues, is that you may have felt like you were acting with impunity and that we weren't coming after you and we couldn't come after you, and that actually the crime pays. So if eventually we do come, then that's just a business loss. Is that we are coming after you. We are going to come and conduct warrants, not just in your business premises, but we will target you at home, we'll target you in your cars. Nowhere is safe to conduct criminal enterprise.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I think for far too long in this country, millions of people felt as though they weren't represented at all by the establishment media.
GB News was needed because there literally was no other voice. Everyone was saying the same thing.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
But journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
Charlie Peters, he gave a voice to the victims of grooming gangs, and now, of course, it's led to a national inquiry.
GB News exists to make sure those concerns are put forward and people feel as though what they want to ask is put to those in power.
We don't take orders from anyone. We ask the questions our viewers and listeners want answering.
I know what's actually being discussed by my family and my friends. Us ordinary, hard-working British people have had enough. We've had enough.
They're fed up with the same old establishment nonsense.
Everything that we do is opening up conversations that others are afraid to go at.
that.
Why are you illegally bringing people into Britain?
That is our job. Our job is to get to the truth.
If it's important to you watching or listening at home, then it's important to us as well.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
It's 10 a.m. on Saturday, the 25th of October. Live across the United Kingdom, this is Saturday Morning Live.
The manhunt for a convicted sex offender migrant who was accidentally freed from jail continues this morning.
The Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy leads demands for the police to explain how Epping migrant Hadush Kibatu was mistakenly released.
Well, I'm appalled and livid on behalf of the public that Kibatu is at large. He should be deported. There is now a manhunt with Essex Police, the Metropolitan Police and British Transport Police looking for him.
Well, last night a protest took place here with anger off the charts. That investigation continuing at pace this morning with Kibatu still at large.
And Labour's next deputy leader will be announced imminently, but will the role go to Bridget Phillipson or Lucy Powell? We'll be bringing you the latest updates throughout the morning.
And a law firm representing several women involved in the government's grooming gangs inquiry has written to the Home Office with a number of concerns about the process, saying the current approach has caused significant distress and disillusionment to survivors. We'll get the latest.
The biggest stories, boldest opinions and liveliest debates over the next 2 hours. I'm Olivia Utley.
And I'm Charlie Peters, and your weekend starts here.
Good morning and welcome to Saturday Morning Live. A manhunt continues this morning after a convicted sex offender was mistakenly released from HMP Chelmsford. 41-year-old Hadush Kibatu, an asylum seeker from Ethiopia, was jailed last month for 12 months after he sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl.
Well, let's cross now to a GBNews national reporter, Will Godley, with some breaking updates from Essex Police. Will, what can you tell us?
Yeah, well, in the last few moments, we've just heard from Essex Police. They've released a statement. I can bring it to you now. They're saying inquiries are continuing at pace to locate and arrest a man following a prison service releasing error yesterday. Officers from Essex Police, Metropolitan Police and the British Transport Police are working together in this fast-moving and complex investigation. They said officers worked throughout the night to track his movements, including scouring hours of CCTV footage, and this work continues today. Our inquiries show that he was last seen in the London area, and this is our focus. They're still appealing for anyone with information to get in touch through 999. But yesterday here at the Bell Hotel, of course, the news that Hadush Kibatu has been mistakenly released from prison after sexually assaulting a woman and a 14-year-old girl here in Epping brought insult to injury here, and there was about 150 people protesting. We're covering that on GBNews last night, where locals here said anger was off the charts at the fact that this man, who should be serving 12 months in prison, is now on the streets of Britain, when yesterday he was supposed to be going to a Home Office deportation facility. Instead, he was handed, we understand, £76 and now on the streets of Britain as police work to try and locate where this Ethiopian small boat migrant really is. And this morning here at the Bell Hotel, all the signage being removed to really see that there is any asylum seekers still here, but this morning I've seen people coming and going from the hotel, so definitely still here as that High Court battle continues over the future of this hotel. Let's just remind ourselves of Hadush Kibatu's movements yesterday, of course, nearly 24 hours on from when he was released from prison. Now, he was seen on Chelmsford High Street at 12:07. Police said he took a train to London from Chelmsford High Street at 12:41. and at nearly 1 o'clock yesterday, Essex police were called. Well, now, this morning, they've told us their investigation is continuing. I'll bring the latest as we have it.
Thank you very much for that report, Will, and I hope we'll be hearing from you about this shocking story throughout the programme. For now, the Labour Party is imminently set to announce the result of its deputy leadership contest following Angela Rayner's resignation over a tax controversy.
Well, the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, and the former Commons leader, Lucy Powell, are the final two contenders, with the result to be revealed any moment now. We can take you there live. Shabana Mahmood is speaking now.
993. The turnout as a percentage was 16.6%, with 50 spoilt ballots. I can confirm that the election has been conducted in accordance with the Labour Party's rulebook and the procedures have been properly followed. I shall now announce the number of votes cast for each candidate listed in alphabetical order. Bridget Phillipson received a total of 73,536 votes. And Lucy Powell received a total of 87,407 votes. I can therefore declare that Lucy Powell has been elected as Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. A huge congratulations to Lucy.
It's a huge privilege to be elected Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. Thank you so much. Shabana, Holly and the party staff who've conducted this contest with integrity, thank you as well. Thank you to all the party members and supporters who voted for me. I will work every day to repay your trust. And I'd like to pay tribute to you, Bridget. You are someone of huge talent, dedication and real Labour values, and I look forward to continuing to work with you as the excellent Education Secretary that you are. I'd also like to pay tribute to my friend Angela Rayner, who has done so much for this party and for this country, and I know she will do a lot more in the future as well. She's known for her shoes, and she leaves some very, very big ones for me to fill today. Keir, as you set out at your conference speech a few weeks ago, we are now in the fight of our lives, and we really are. Not for ourselves and our fortunes, but for the future of the country and democracy. Division and hate are on the rise, discontent and disillusionment widespread. The desire for change impatient and palpable. People are looking around, looking elsewhere for the answers. And we, as the Labour Party, as the party of government, have to step forward and take this on. We have this one big chance to show that progressive, mainstream politics really can change people's lives for the better. After all, that's the belief why most of us joined the Labour Party in the first place. And the stakes really are that high. And Keir, I am here to help you in that fight as your Deputy Leader. We have to offer hope, to offer the big change the country's crying out for. We must give a stronger sense of our purpose, whose side we're on, and of our Labour values and beliefs. That's what I've heard loudly and clearly around the country these last few weeks. As Deputy, my job will be to bring those voices to the heart of our party. Because whilst we're doing many good things, and we just heard some of them now, people feel that this government is not being bold enough in delivering the kind of change we promised. I'll be a champion for our Labour values and boldness in everything we do. And I know that you, Keir, as our leader, you want that too, and I will be your ally in that fight. It starts with us wrestling back the political megaphone and setting the agenda more strongly. Because let's be honest, we've let Farage and his ilk run away with it. He wants to blame immigration for all the country's problems. We reject that. Our diagnosis is different, that for too long, the country and the economy has worked in the interests of the few, not the many. That trickle-down economics hasn't worked. Life has just got harder and harder, less and less secure, in work, in housing, in making ends meet. We say that the deep-seated inequalities that have widened in wealth, in regions, in class, in health, need fundamentally redressing. And that's what we're about, and that's what we're trying to fix. That's how we'll reunite our voter coalition and reunite the country. I'm here to help make that the story of this Labour government. Because that's what Labour governments do and have always done. Our story began in my home city of Manchester. Workers joined together to demand better pay and conditions, to have a say in how the country was run. Solidarity, building a lasting movement. My politics have always been shaped by being a proud Mancunian and being Labour through and through. I stand here now as a deputy leader steeped in those traditions, proud of all those things that Labour governments have achieved: the NHS, the national minimum wage, council housing, the Equal Pay Act, devolution to Scotland and Wales, civil partnerships, the Climate Change Act, Sure Start, and much more. Our movement has always been our strength. Through our members and affiliates, we're connected to our communities, to our workplaces. We're part of the national conversation. I've met so many fantastic people in this campaign, decent, moderate Labour people. We're joined together by our values and our experiences. All want us to succeed, but we need to step up. They want to see our values in what we're doing. They don't feel part of the conversation or part of the movement right now, and we have to change that. Our members and our elected representatives are not our weakness, they're our key asset, delivering change on the ground. Unity and loyalty comes from collective purpose, not from command and control. Debating, listening, and hearing is not dissent, it's our strength. As your deputy, my commitment is to change the culture to get this right. We can't waste a moment, can we, with these hugely important elections across England, in Scotland and Wales next year. The result this week shows us what task we face. We won't win by trying to out-reform reform, but by building a broad progressive consensus. I'll work day in and day out from day one to help us with that fight. And let me end with this. At the election 16 months ago, the British people voted for change. I'm here to do everything I can to make that change a reality. I'm here to help change Britain for the better. I'm here to serve our country, to serve our party, and to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. And let me start by thanking both campaigns for making this contest a constructive and honest debate about our future. The Labour Party, in my view, is extremely lucky to have been offered a choice between two women, both of whom are strong, principled, courageous campaigners. And also, it's been a refreshing and renewing experience for all of us. But now the party has spoken, and I'm delighted to start working with Lucy as our new deputy leader. And we'll get going straight away, Lucy. Because Lucy has always been a proud defender of Labour values. And that is exactly what we need at this moment. We need to come together to defend those values. Values that are not just Labour values, but also British values. Decency, compassion, respect for difference, optimism about the future, and pride in all the people and communities that make this country so great. And all of that is under threat. Because we face opponents now who want to wage war against it. And not just the ideas, but against the people and communities. You know, only this week, one of our political opponents called for a policy that says people who have settled here legally, nurses, pensioners, teachers, business owners, our neighbours, that they should be deported if they earn less than £38,000 a year, or if they claim any benefits, including the state pension. These are people settled here lawfully, our neighbours. And look, this week, it wasn't even Reform. This week, it was the Tories. And that is what we're up against on the right of politics. A politics of division and grievance that wants to take this great country to a very dark place. Our job, whoever we are in this party, is to unite every single person in this country who is opposed to that politics and defeat it once and for all. And that means we must press ahead with the renewal that working people need to see. Now, this week we received another reminder of just how urgent that task is. A bad result in Wales. I accept that. But a reminder that people need to look out their window and see change and renewal in their community, opportunities for their children, public services rebuilt, the cost of living crisis tackled. Renewal is the only answer to decline, to grievance and to division. And we have to keep going on that. It is the offer we must make to the people of Scotland, Wales and England next year. And that means we must come together. We must unite. We must keep our focus on what is, in my view, the defining battle for the soul of our nation. And I know that Lucy will do just that. She made it clear that she will reach out across our party and make sure every voice is heard as we come together. And she will use her position to drive us forward in that fight. So thank you again, both Lucy and Bridget, for participating in this contest. It has been a great campaign, a great victory for Lucy. And now we come together to fight for Britain, for decency, for national renewal. Let's renew Britain together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Keir, and a huge thank you to all the members and affiliates for joining us this morning. Our focus is now on the elections in May, and the new Deputy Leader will be heading off straight away to start knocking on doors, and I hope as many of you as can join in will do so. Thank you all very much. Thanks.
Well, it is the result we were all expecting. Lucy Powell has been elected as Deputy Chair of the party, and there is an awful lot to unpack from her speech there, and the Prime Minister's too. And to do it with us is the former Labour Party Chair, Baroness Hayter. Baroness Hayter, what did you make of that? It seemed to me that there were quite a lot of rather thinly veiled digs at the Prime Minister from Lucy Powell in that speech. Stuff about debating is not dissent, it's our strength. Well, Keir Starmer is often accused of being too tight-knit, of not listening to other voices. She said that the party isn't being bold enough. This is a really bad result for the Prime Minister, isn't it? Exactly what he didn't want. He sacked her a few weeks ago and now she's back.
I couldn't disagree more. You know, I was at a conference in Scotland yesterday with a whole lot of people who work in property, and they gave me I can't show it to you, a little tiny thin thing like that, which they use for checking on doors. And if there's more than that gap, there's a fire risk. Well, I feel that, you know, you're looking at trying to find something as small as that between the leader and the deputy leader. Good luck with your digging, but I really didn't see that. What I saw was a woman who's a great campaigner. You know, she's just been out amongst party members. She's won the vote. In fact, they both did very well. You know, there's a lot of votes out there for both of them. They're both good campaigners. She obviously has the edge. She's out there there campaigning. She's speaking about the values. She's speaking about what she wants to do, of taking the message out around the country. And as Keir just said, the other said, out now waiting for the May elections. So good luck with your trying to find something between them. But I don't think you've quite got that right.
Well, Baroness Hayter, you say that, she's very popular and will be set out campaigning. I mean, the Labour Party basically hid Lucy Powell earlier this year when she caused great controversy, referring to the grooming gang scandal as blowing a little trumpet, referring to it as a dog whistle issue. For her election to come right after the government's inquiry has descended into chaos, there's going to be a potential for some more bad press about that incident as well.
I don't think that's right. I think that she explained that was not what she meant, and
we all know what she meant. She said it.
No, and the Labour Party, and particularly being now again, thank goodness, another woman as our deputy leader. There's nobody going to be more sensitive to these issues than women in the Labour Party. I mean, what she has said is that, and quite rightly, as long with Keir Starmer, they've both said we are more than slightly on the back foot at the moment. We've got a task in front of us, and we have a united party to be taking forward lessons from the past. There's nothing wrong with that. We were new into government in July last year, and there have been issues about how quickly we can turn around the machinery of government and get things going. They're both united on that, and she has been in government all that time. She's been leading the House of Lords for that, House of Commons for that period, and will now work very closely with all the cabinet to do the things that we promised in the manifesto.
Yeah, but crucially, Baroness Hayter, she was working in the cabinet. She was sacked by Keir Starmer a few weeks ago. I just do not believe that when he says that he's delighted to be working with her again. And there were certainly criticisms of Keir Starmer in that speech. She said that we've allowed Farage and his ilk to run away with the political microphone. She said that Labour haven't been bold enough. Surely you can see that those are criticisms of the Prime Minister from the new Deputy Leader of the Labour Party.
Well, firstly, particularly on the first one, I disagree. It is Keir Starmer himself who has recognised and had to make the move from seeing the Tories as our opposition to seeing Farage as the opposition. That's exactly the move he's made, and she's been part of that move, and you will have seen over the Kafili and other campaigning he's been doing, he's made that move. So we've all learned lessons since July, and she's on that same process. Can I say what I think is an advantage now is that she, it's really, really difficult being a cabinet minister and all of that. I'm not taking away from what Angela Rayner did. It is amazing what she did, but doing all that and being deputy leader is a tough act. So I think having a deputy leader who can now focus on growing the party, on bringing the party absolutely refocused on the next election, on talking outside to the electorate.
Yes.
This is really good for Labour.
Well, Baroness Hayter, it does feel like the Labour Party wanted to play down this event. No reporters allowed into the event, possibly because they didn't want anyone questioning the Prime Minister. As he spoke about our politics being dragged to a dark place by both Reform and the Tories, but a lot of people waking up this morning will think that our country is already in a dark place. We've just had a man sentenced, a small boat migrant, for viciously murdering a woman working at the hotel he was staying at. And then last night, this news that a hotel migrant sex attacker has gone missing. A lot of people will look at that and think, bringing our country into a dark place, we're there already, and reporters aren't able to question the Prime Minister about it.
I knew nothing about that bit of it. But look, we're not in a dark place. I mean, it is appalling what happened about someone being released sort of by, I can't imagine what happened there, released by accident. But we're not in a dark place. You just have to look out on the streets. You see our schools are thriving. You see hospitals, for all that they are under challenge, and there are problems that we're dealing with over waiting lists. But most people are getting really good treatment from the health service. We always in this country seem to look at the odd little things that go wrong, and what we don't look at.
It's not an odd little thing going wrong. It's over 150,000 people arriving illegally, and some of them going on to commit horrific murders, sexual assaults, and then going missing from our prisons. I mean, you say look out into the streets.
By the odd thing going on. I was referring to someone being let out of prison. I am not downplaying the other
Well, it's happened
issues at all.
262 times last year, someone being let out of prison accidentally early.
That figure I hadn't seen. And what's interesting as a journalist, if that's true, that you haven't been covering that, because I was unaware of it, and I do tend to follow the news quite carefully. So it's interesting if that's happening. But look, this society is not, stop talking down Britain is what I say. Most people are having, there are big struggles, particularly actually on cost of living, I think, is a bigger issue for most people than others. But our streets, our schools, our health service, universities, our armed forces, all the normal things that a government do, we are building up again. We are putting right the things that we found wrong. But we've been less than a year and a half, and it will take time to mend all of that. But don't talk down Britain. Most people are bringing children into the world, bringing up families.
Okay.
A day like today.
Thank you. OK, right, still to come, we'll get much more reaction to that result and the rest of today's top stories. This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Sumo is a fantastically simple sport to win. There's only really two win conditions. You either drive your opponent out of the dojo, the ring, or you take them to the ground. And when we say take them to the ground, any part of their body other than the soles of their feet which touches the ground, that counts as a loss. Now, how you do this can vary. It varies between wrestlers and their backgrounds and styles. Some will be more focused on the driving and the pushing. Some, particularly with the judo background, more focused on the throws. There is kind of a core of winning techniques, which we call kimarite, and they're kind of standard winning techniques. But realistically, any technique you use to get your opponent either out or down, you'll win the match.
But the two that we're seeing on the screen look actually quite lightweight sumos, because I've seen some really heavy sumos, but with that weight, they are incredibly flexible. Like the one earlier was doing the box splits. I mean, there he is. Look at that. That is not an easy. I'm training to do the box splits, and I can't do that. And look at him. He's going to roll all the way through as well. Rob, they're very fit, aren't they? But these ones look lighter.
So they are incredibly fit athletes, and I think one of the things people forget when they look at sumo or they look at rikishi is that they are athletes, and to a degree we're looking at two sumo wrestlers standing next to each other, and so they look normal size in comparison to each other. In terms of their body fat percentage, is actually very, very low.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now,
now to look through the top stories of today. We're delighted to be joined by Deputy Political Editor of The Spectator, James Heal, and trade unionist and political commentator, Andy Twelves. Now, James, I'm going to start with you. I mean, there is so much to unpack from that speech and from the result generally. Really, really low turnout, just 16%. Should we start there?
Yeah, I mean, so I think that's the first sign. Of course, we don't know how many people are in the Labour Party. Labour refuses to release its figures, but this was a vote of the affiliate members and unions as well. So 16% is, first of all, the most worrying concern there, I think, in terms of the low engagement, how disappointed a lot of people feel in this leadership. But then, of course, the margin of victory, almost 10 points. Lucy Powell getting that just 7 weeks after Keir Starmer sacked her as Leader of the House of Commons, the only person he was able to successfully sack from the Cabinet at that reshuffle. And so I think both the fact that Labour members aren't engaged, the union movement isn't really happy, and the fact that Lucy Powell has won, as we all thought she would. And, of course, the speech she gave herself, which talked about the command and control mission of Keir Starmer's leadership, and, of course, the effect that they're trying to out-reform reform. So I think all that is a warning shot ahead of the months ahead.
Yeah, what do you think, Andy? I mean, I agree with James there that there seem to be quite a lot of pretty thinly veiled digs at the Prime Minister. Baroness Hayter didn't seem to agree, but what do you think?
Well, I think it's the kind of start of what will be quite a campaigning deputy leadership. Obviously, the Greens have had their membership double in the last couple of weeks, up to 140,000. Obviously, Farage on the march for the May local elections. Corbyn over there on the left somewhere doing what he is with your party. I think, actually, Baroness Hayter raised a good point of we do need a campaigning deputy leader to kind of reignite the activists. Because, like you said, the turnout was 16%. That's not an engaged Labour Party. It's not an engaged Labour movement. And I do think having, someone without that cabinet responsibilities, Rayner was the Housing Secretary, Bridget Phillipson's the Education Secretary, two massive briefs, for her to have the freedom to go out and campaign.
Lucky
and go to
she
those,
was sacked by Keir Starmer,
really. But, for that freedom to go out to those small by-elections that might mean nothing, but will just add another reform councillor, I think is really important and valuable.
And it's all well and good being a campaigning deputy leader and having the space and opportunity to do this, but that relies on people actually liking what you're campaigning on. And what Lucy Powell was just saying now, but we can't out-reform reform, and we can't go that direction. That's to build a broader progressive approach.
Yeah.
That's going to be quite difficult language for the Prime Minister to hear as he's trying to take on reform and the Conservatives on those issues of immigration. When you've got a migrant sex attacker on the loose in London right now, is the message of progressivism really going to be the one that's going to captivate people to engage with Labour?
Well, I think it's a slight deviation from that kind of blue Labour ideology that's core in number 10, that kind of social conservatism, but kind of socialist economics. And I think kind of Lucy Powell's coming at it from this kind of mainstream Labour perspective. The new faction that was launched, I think, a month and a half ago, headed up by Andy Burnham and John Lansman and loads of different characters in there. And it's that kind of alternative to the last 5 years that we've seen under the Starmer leadership, which has been, almost chasing the narrative rather than leading it. And I think that is a healthy thing to have.
Do you think that it does feel a bit like this is the fight for the soul of the Labour Party? You've got Keir Starmer and Shabana Mahmood, who are very clearly going after potential reform voters. They say that immigration is an important issue, and the polls would back them up. 54% of the public think that immigration is the most important issue. But actually, it is fair to say that some of the voters who are leaving Labour are going to progressive parties. We saw that big win for Plaid Cymru in Wales yesterday. The Greens are really growing in popularity. It seems a bit to me as though Keir Starmer is sort of representing the right of the party, Powell's representing the left. Where will the twain meet?
Well, this is the real head and heart question for the Labour Party. I think instinctively all political activists at different parties want their leadership to go in the direction. So if you're a centre-right party, they want it to go to the right. We saw the Tories. And if you're a centre-left party, they want it to go to the left. So I think this is going to be the big debate that plays out over the next sort of 8-9 months or so. Have the Labour Party got their kind of big macro strategy right? And increasingly people in Labour are saying, hang on a sec, we're shedding votes. Other parties are on the rise. You've got the Greens now as well. And I think this is the big thing playing out. We saw Lord Kinnock make a couple of interventions the last few weeks as well. These are Labour grandees. There was a meeting this week. Labour peers were very angry with Morgan McSweeney. I think a lot of the party is stirring and thinking, look, this guy, Keir Starmer, you just saw with that speech there, can't actually deliver anything, can't rally the base. What are we actually fighting for?
And Andy, as all the party is stirring, there's just been crisis after crisis this week of bad coverage. The total number of small boats arrivals already overcoming last year's total, the grooming inquiry going into chaos, and now this Ethiopian sex attacker being accidentally freed from prison, and God only knows what Sunday will bring. I mean, it's just been a relentless pile of misery. it's a difficult time for Labour to get back on track.
Yeah, it's not been a good week for the Labour Party or the country as a whole, actually. But I think part of it is about that storytelling issue. You know, obviously immigration is going to take a while to fix. You know, the small boats crisis, the grooming gang inquiry, that could take years to do. You know, it is going to be a continuous story. I think it's about, number 10, getting the comms right and actually telling the story of the good things they're doing alongside fixing the bad things. You know, getting those key kind of Labour principles correct.
What about that Times front page?
Times front page. What's on the Times front page? Raising the minimum wage. Exactly. That is exactly the kind of thing that the Labour Party should be shouting from the hilltops about. You know, making sure it's going up from 12.21 to 12.70. It's going to have a massive impact on working class people across the country.
But business leaders have said that it could be a problem because employers will find it much harder to employ young people with very little experience. So there is still so much division in Labour. Do you think Labour MPs are going to start whispering now that perhaps Keir Starmer, who doesn't seem to have much of a sense of direction, doesn't seem to know whether he wants to tack to the left or the right, maybe isn't the man for the job anymore?
I think that conversation is very much going on already, Olivia, and speaking to Labour MPs, you know, they admit that things are definitely not where they want it to. I think they're all waiting to see what happens with May next year. There's been some suggestions maybe you could get to around after the budget. I think those are going to be the two things, the budget and then May, and I think all I can see is that there's no kind of silver bullet. The soft left wants to spend money, but there's not much money left to spend.
And, Andy, you think perhaps the arrival of Lucy Powell is another thing that could further dislodge Keir Starmer's security in his role, as James was talking about, those conversations already going on among Labour MPs?
I think conversations always happen. You know, when Tony Blair was leader, there were conversations happening every time something went wrong, and he was leader for 10 years.
Yeah, but not at this stage of his premiership.
Well, no, his polls were pretty poor for the first 3 years, until really, yeah, for the first 3 years they weren't great. Obviously, they weren't this bad. But I don't think that, you know, Lucy Powell is going to lead a coup and lead a revolution. I don't think she's got leadership ambitions.
But it might give impetus to those who are trying.
I think it might. Fair enough.
Well, thank you, James and Andy. But still to come, a Sudanese asylum seeker has been found guilty of murdering a young mother working at the Migrant hotel he was staying in.
Rhiannon White's sister spoke outside court after the verdict was announced.
Throughout this trial, we have been given no reason as to why he chose Rhiannon. She fought for her life and to save herself from this sick, twisted and cowardly human.
We'll be discussing that awful story next. But first, here are your news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Thank you both. Good morning. The headlines from the GB newsroom. Some breaking news. Lucy Powell says it's a huge privilege to be elected as the deputy leader of the Labour Party and that she wants to give her party a stronger sense of purpose. A manhunt is continuing for an asylum seeker who was jailed last month for sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl and a woman after he was released from prison by mistake. Cross-party MPs are warning that cutting the Cash ISA tax-free allowance would be a clumsy and ineffective way to encourage investment in shares, as the Chancellor considers halving the limit to £10,000 at next month's budget. Parents in the UK are being urged to vaccinate their children against flu over half-term, as health officials are warning there's a worrying case in rises. You're up to date. I'll have more for you at 11 o'clock.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. The weekend will start off with some sunshine, also some showers, feeling cold too, before we're likely to see some spells of rain through into Sunday. For many, though, the beginning of the weekend will start off dry, bright, some showers, particularly any areas that are exposed to that brisk northerly wind. That's going to make things feel chilly into this afternoon, and some showers may turn wintry across the Scottish Highlands. But for all, it is set to feel much colder, highs reaching around 10 to 12 degrees across parts of the south, but in many northern areas where we catch those winds, it's going to feel more like freezing. So feeling cold as we progress through into the evening as well, particularly under any clear skies, and those strong winds are still set to continue across Scotland, continuing to add to that chilly feel. Plenty of showers feeding through too, particularly around coastal areas. Still some sleet and snow at times over any high ground. Across Northern Ireland, still plenty of showers feeding through here, pushing through into parts of Wales, but elsewhere across England, particularly around any eastern areas, mostly dry and plenty of clear skies through the course of the night. We won't see much change through the overnight period. There are still going to be a continuation of the showers, particularly around any coastal areas. Once again, mostly dry, plenty of clear skies around eastern areas. That brisk breeze still continuing, so mostly frost-free, but in any sheltered spots we could see some isolated patchy frost, but lows reaching around the low to mid-single figures. Now, of course, the clocks will go back an hour through Sunday, but you might have to get up early if you want to see any sunshine, because any brighter spells will soon be replaced by cloud, outbreaks of rain pushing into the northwest. This could be heavy at times. The best of the brightness likely across the far east and southeast, even as we continue into the afternoon. Still fairly breezy, still feeling chilly too, highs reaching around 12 degrees Celsius. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. Now, a Sudanese asylum seeker has been found guilty of murdering 27-year-old mother Rhiannon White in October 2024.
Yes, Deng Majek attacked Rhiannon on a train platform in Walsall after she finished her shift at the hotel where he was staying.
Well, joining us now is human rights lawyer David Hay to discuss this case further. David, this is a truly horrifying case. The particularly vicious nature of the attack and the fact, of course, that this man was brought into contact with Rhiannon White due to the failures of our border system.
Good morning to you both. It's a very, very grim and very horrific to see this, not just obviously the terrible crime that was committed, but the way that it was committed and the mannerisms of the person afterwards, the criminal that did it. It really is deeply, deeply troubling and terrifying, I think. And like you said, this was an asylum seeker that was here through the asylum process that perhaps shouldn't have been here, and now this terrible crime has been committed. And obviously he's been found guilty. That's one positive. But it just shows you that we are in a very dangerous situation at the moment.
The Home Office won a case recently to keep the Bell Hotel open to house migrants. If it had lost that case, the whole migrant hotels system would have completely fallen apart. But surely we are now getting to the end of migrant hotels. People are fed up with them, aren't they?
I think they are as well, and I think one of the things that we've got to look at as well is the people in the hotel. So we've seen here a worker in the hotel that effectively was murdered by one of the people in these asylum hotels. But it's also the genuine asylum seekers and other asylum seekers. They are not safe for the people inside the hotels as well as for the people outside of them. I'm aware of many, many cases where people are inside the hotels that are scared to death, understandably, when you see what's happened now. And that's something that people haven't been focusing on. It's not just the people outside the hotels and the areas they're in. Inside the hotels, they are dangerous.
Yeah, David, the reports of attacks not on just workers but also other people inside them have been astonishing. But the current process for dealing with the asylum hotels appears to be putting people into HMOs, into properties inside the community. But when people see that there are so many risks from unvetted men arriving on small boats, that response just won't be accepted by local communities. Do you think, as a human rights lawyer, there is a case for some specific accommodation to be set up? We've heard that Suella Braverman, the former Home Secretary, calling for tented accommodation or special camps and bases where these people can be kept.
Look, I think from a human rights perspective, and I'm looking at, not just the human rights of the people, the asylum seekers, but us as well as the British people, I think purpose-built or purpose-re-enabled places like ex-army bases. Look what we did in COVID, where we put up the Nightingale hospitals very, very quickly. but where they're safe and secure for the people that are there, safe and secure for the people that are around, and where you have, you have the lawyers, you have the medical staff, you have all the people on site to process applications quickly. I think that's the way to do it. You shouldn't have a situation where you're putting people in hotels where, a receptionist in a hotel is not a trained security person. They're not trained to do that. Whereas if you have people that are, it keeps everyone safe. And what this case has shown is that those hotels, and if you have smaller, houses of multiple occupation, they are not safe for the people in them or out of them. And this type of tragedy is going to happen again. Like I said, I know several people that are in these asylum establishments and are terrified for their life.
It's very refreshing to hear a human rights lawyer talk about the human rights of the people in the communities as opposed to just the migrants. But I think you are pretty unusual for your kind. There's one Albanian drug dealer who's just been granted asylum by a judge because he's said to have learnt his lesson. The Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood doesn't want this. The Prime Minister doesn't want this. The public clearly don't want this. Sometimes it feels a bit as though the country is actually run by human rights lawyers.
Well, I think what it is, because Keir Starmer is a human rights lawyer, as is the Attorney General, so it is run by human rights lawyers, and this is part of the reason why they poacher and gamekeeper, they know how to fix these problems because they're the people that have been involved in it. So you would have thought they've made a lot more advancements than they have done, and I think it is a terrifying situation what is happening. I think in the country at the moment is clearly that they haven't got a solution, and it's all very well the likes of David Lammy and Shabana Mahmood saying the Home Office is broken. We've known that for a very long time, but they failed to do anything about it. So it is a terrifying thing that they're solutionless as to the problem.
All right, human rights lawyer David Hay, thank you very much for your time this morning. Still to come, are men being shut out of work in modern Britain? There's nearly 500,000 young men not in education, employment or training across the country.
What does it mean for the economy as Rachel Reeves's next budget looms? That's next. You're watching Saturday Morning Live, only on GB News.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's the start of half-term for many of us, but I'm afraid there's showers and some longer spells of rain in the forecast, particularly across parts of Iberia and southeastern Europe. Portugal and Spain could see some showers as we head through into Sunday. These could be heavy, possibly thundery. A mix of sunshine and showers elsewhere across northern parts of Europe, but it is going to be feeling much cooler than of late. Some brighter spells across southern parts of France, northern Europe, but elsewhere it is going to remain unsettled. More sunshine into next week, as well as some warm temperatures.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel. Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day.
Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. Are men being shut out of work in modern Britain? According to new figures from the Office for National Statistics, the male employment rate stood at 77.9% in the 3 months to August, down from 80.1% during the same period in 2019.
There's nearly 500,000 young men not in education, employment or training across the country. So what does that mean for the economy as Rachel Reeves' next budget looms large? Well, Director of the Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, joins us now. Mark, what's your reflection on these figures? Do we have a crisis of male employment? And if so, what's behind it?
Yes, it's yet more bad news, isn't it, Charlie? I mean, there's a whole range of bad indicators on the economy, from business confidence to inflation still not being tamed. But worklessness is a particular problem. And it seems to me we've actually got to tackle it from both ends of the spectrum. On the one hand, we've probably made being workless a bit too easy. We're being relatively generous with welfare. The number of people signed off sick and incapable of working is going up and up and up, even though there's no medical evidence that ill health has worsened. There's not as if there's some new virus that has hit Britain. So we've probably made welfare a little bit too generous, particularly on sickness benefits. But the other thing is we've made job creation so much harder. I mean, we had the national insurance rise in Rachel Reeves' last budget. I'm bracing myself for news equally as bad as that in her next budget. So it's harder for businesses to create jobs, and particularly looking at male worklessness in the manufacturing sector. Well, we've made running a manufacturing business extraordinarily difficult because of the incredibly high cost of energy. Energy prices in the UK are about 4 times that of the United States of America. So are you going to locate your manufacturing plant in Hounslow or in Houston? Almost certainly in Houston. So we've got to get energy prices down as well. So it is a big, big problem. GDP, national income is flatlining. And one factor, one reason behind that is that we haven't got enough people in the workforce, but we've made it pretty hard to create jobs for them.
Yes, and I expect the Workers' Rights Bill isn't going to make it very much easier, and nor is the raise to the national minimum wage. But as well as the big economic reasons behind this rise in male worklessness, there are some cultural issues too, aren't there? We've known for a long time that white working-class boys particularly are being failed in schools, and it often feels as though all of the focus is on girls. Is that an issue? Is it that you know, white working-class boys, they don't have their role models, they're not really taken seriously at school, the education system is set up better for girls? Are those big issues too?
Well, Olivia, I mean, I'm loath to say that we should pivot away our focus from one particular cohort to another. I think we've actually got to create an environment in which all sorts of different people can find all sorts of different jobs and pursue their life to the best of their ability. But you're quite right to point out that if you were looking for a cohort or a demographic that was left behind, white working class boys appear quite high up that list, certainly in terms of unfulfilled potential. I would have thought we also need to take a long, hard look at our education system. I think we're probably sending too many people to university to do things which have very little value to them or to the wider economy. We've never been very good at vocational training in the UK. I think young men could benefit from that in particular. So it is definitely a multifaceted problem, but it is a major, major problem. I mean, if this trend continues, and it's only ticking down at the moment, male employment, women's employment is staying about flat. But if this trend continues, we are never, ever going to see a growing economy. So let's make it easier for businesses to create jobs, and let's encourage, make sure we've got the incentives right for men and indeed women to apply for those jobs and find them. But the number of jobs advertised is falling. This is a key sign that business is struggling. Number of job vacancies, which aren't just vacancies, of course, those are often job creations, that's ticking downwards as well. So we simply have not created a good environment for business. If you don't do that, you don't create a good environment for jobs, and we should be sadly unsurprised that so many people aren't working.
Mark Littlewood, I'm conscious of the slight irony in me asking this question while I'm wearing some bronzer and hairspray, but we do have an issue with more masculine lines of work, do we not? With manufacturing declining significantly. You spoke about energy, but what are the other economic incentives that could possibly affecting number of men in work?
Yes, I mean, on the manufacturing sector, I think energy is the big one, but there are other factors involved as well, Charlie. But generally, the overall environment for business needs to be good. We have hugely over-regulated businesses in this country. It is nearly impossible to build anything. Oftentimes,
Mark, we're going to have to leave it there, but we'd love to hear more from you on this topic later. We've got lots more to come on Saturday Morning Live, including more of today's top stories on the Epping migrant hunt and the reaction to Lucy Powell being named new deputy leader.
Don't go any...
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. A cold day out there today. Northerly winds, quite brisk with some scattered showers. Showers falling as snow over the Scottish mountains. And we can see that on the pressure pattern. Low pressure to the east, high pressure to the west, and a northerly airstream across the UK. So a chilly start out there, and then through the day there'll be plenty of sunny spells, but in the northerly flow there'll be showers as well. Showers most frequent across northern and western parts of the UK. Some of the showers could be heavy. The odd rumble of thunder is possible, and they will fall as snow over the Scottish mountains. Cold temperatures in single figures for much of the north of the UK, 12 or 13 perhaps across some sheltered southern parts of England. Into this evening time, if we zoom into Scotland, we can see frequent showers pushing in from the north. These falling as snow over the higher ground, some rumbles of thunder possible, but sheltered parts in the south of Scotland having a dry end to the day. Plenty of showers across Northern Ireland, some sunshine ahead of dusk across parts of northern and eastern England, but frequent showers to Wales and southwest England too. Again, some of these on the heavy side at times. The wind's brisk, some large waves around the coasts, and then showers continuing through the evening and overnight to push southwards. Under the clearest skies, particularly across central and eastern parts, where winds fall light, we'll see temperatures drop away. Towns and cities mid to low single figures, the countryside getting close to zero, so a touch of frost is possible. But around the coast, and particularly in the north and the west, where we continue to see showers, it should be frost-free. So chilly start to Sunday, but it's all change. A weather system starts moving in from the northwest, some outbreaks of rain pushing into Scotland, Northern Ireland, eventually pushing its way southeastwards. But with the clock change, we won't see the rain arriving into the southeast until nearer the end of the day, when it starts to get dark, and temperatures generally around 9 to 12 Celsius.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can become our biggest winner this year. First, you could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxury vehicle comfortably sleeps four, has its own fitted kitchen and bathroom areas, and comes complete with fitted awning and bicycle rack. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 11 a.m. on Saturday, the 25th of October, live across the United Kingdom. This is Saturday Morning Live.
Police say inquiries are continuing at pace this morning as the manhunt for a convicted sex offender migrant who was accidentally freed from jail develops.
Well, the Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy, has led demands for police to explain how the Epping asylum seeker Hadush Kabatu was mistakenly released.
Well, I'm appalled and livid on behalf of the public that Kabatu is at large. He should be deported. There is now a manhunt with Essex Police, the Metropolitan Police and British Transport Police looking for him.
Well, officers from 3 different police forces have spent the night trawling CCTV footage. They say Kabatu was last seen in the London area.
Therefore declare that Lucy Powell has been elected as Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. A huge congratulations.
Yes, Lucy Powell says it's a huge privilege to be elected as the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party and that she wants to give the party a stronger sense of purpose.
We are now in the fight of our lives, and we really are. Not for ourselves and our fortunes, but for the future of the country and democracy.
Well, elsewhere, a law firm representing several women involved in the government's grooming gangs inquiry has written to the Home Office with a set of concerns about the process, saying that it currently has caused significant distress and disillusionment with survivors. We'll get the latest on that.
Ago, LFG volunteers cleaned the tube because TfL refused to do so. So, what did TfL do?
Firstly, would ask anybody not to take this matter into their own hands.
Transport for London boss Andy Lord allegedly lied when he told the London Assembly that volunteers who had cleaned graffiti off the tube had spray painted it on themselves. Campaign group Looking for Growth will join us to talk about the row. The biggest stories, boldest opinions and liveliest debates over the next hour. I'm Olivia Utley.
And I'm Charlie Peters, and your weekend starts here. good morning. Very grateful to have your company this morning. And that last story there, LFG, that campaign group, they've been cleaning up the graffiti on the tube. And Olivia, I'm sure you've seen it increasingly on the transport system in our capital, and indeed on buses and metro transport systems around the country, really, not just London.
Yeah, and it just gives this kind of sense that London seems to be sort of falling apart. You see people pushing through the train barriers, not paying for their tickets, see graffiti everywhere. I'm really sounding like the mum that I am now.
Hey, we need it. We need people to take notice of these things, because all too often, if we excuse it, let it go, things will get worse. And it's that sense of broken windows justice.
Just what I was going to say, Charlie. We're on the same page. Yeah, you have something going a little bit wrong. Things start to fray around the edges, and then things start to go really seriously wrong. It is beginning to feel like that.
What these guys did, these campaigners, wanted to bring attention to this problem. They started wiping off the graffiti, but then what TfL said was, oh, we've got some evidence that they did it themselves. They put up that graffiti themselves just to clean it off. Well, LFG asked for that evidence, and we look forward to showing you later the response they got.
Well, it's a really extraordinary story, and we'd love to hear from you on that and anything else. Please send in your views and post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/yoursay.
But before we get stuck into all of today's top stories, let's cross way out now to Bethany Elsey, who has all your latest news headlines.
Thank you both. Good morning. I'm Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB newsroom at 3 minutes past 11. Lucy Powell has said it's a huge privilege to be elected as Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. The former House of Commons Speaker was sacked in Sir Keir Starmer's reshuffle last month, but has won 87,407 votes, beating her opponent, the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson.
We are now in the fight of our lives, and we really are. Not for ourselves and our fortunes, but for the future of the country and democracy. Division and hate are on the rise, discontent and disillusionment widespread. The desire for change, impatient and palpable. People are looking around, looking elsewhere for the answers. And we, as the Labour Party, as the party of government, have to step forward and take this on. We have this one big chance to show that progressive, mainstream politics really can change people's lives.
A manhunt is continuing for an asylum seeker who was jailed last month for sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl and a woman after he was released from prison by mistake. Essex Police says they're working urgently to detain Hadoush Kabatu, who was last seen boarding a London-bound train at Chelmsford yesterday at lunchtime. His crimes sparked protests outside the Bell Hotel in Epping, where he was living after arriving in the UK on a small boat before being given a 12-month sentence. The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, says his accidental release is totally unacceptable, and the MP for Chelmsford, Marie Goldman, is calling for a public inquiry.
It shouldn't even be possible to blame just one person for the accidental release of a prisoner. It should be a full system that's in place to make sure that doesn't happen. It shouldn't be possible for this, 262 people released early by mistake, over the course of the past year or so. That is completely unacceptable, and it is an example of a system that is totally broken. So yes, there are things that we need to put in place straight away, but we also need to understand exactly what went wrong.
Cross-party MPs are warning that cutting the cash ISA tax-free allowance would be a clumsy and ineffective way to encourage investment in stocks and shares. It's understood the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, is considering halving the tax-free limit to £10,000 at the budget next month. The Treasury Select Committee says the focus should be on improving financial literacy and enhancing access to good advice, while a direct impact on people's savings could backfire. And parents in the UK are being urged to vaccinate their children against flu over half-term, as health officials are warning the virus can spread like wildfire. England's Chief Nursing Officer, Duncan Burton, says flu has hit early this year, with a worrying rise in cases among children. Pop-up clinics will be set up at fire stations and bowling alleys, and children can also receive the jab at your local pharmacy. You're up to date. I'll have more for you in half an hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Thank you, Bethany, and welcome back to Saturday Morning Live with Charlie Peters and me, Olivia Utley.
Now, a manhunt continues this morning after a convicted sex offender was mistakenly released from HMP Chelmsford.
41-year-old Hadush Kabatu, an asylum seeker from Ethiopia, was jailed last month for 12 months for sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl.
Authorities say that inquiries show he was last seen in the London area, and this is our focus. But joining us now from Epping is our national reporter, Will Godley. You've got updates from Essex Police, Will, and also, I believe, some local reaction in the area, because, of course, this is the community so gravely affected by this man's actions.
Yeah, there was a protest here last night, Charlie, where about 150 people showed up, and it was described as where anger was off the charts. Of course, this was where Hadush Kabatu was staying at the Bell Hotel here when he sexually assaulted a woman and a 14-year-old girl in July, 9 days after arriving here in the UK by a small boat. Well, he was sentenced for those crimes on the 23rd of September this year, sentenced to 12 months in prison and as well being deported to Ethiopia. But instead of that, he is now on the streets of Britain, and police in the last hour saying they believe he is in the London area. Essex Police leading on this investigation, but they are working with the Metropolitan Police and British Transport Police as well. They've said their investigation is continuing at pace, and that throughout the night officers has been trawling CCTV footage to identify exactly Mr. Kabatu's movements, and he was seen, of course, they said last seen in London, and that is where the focus of their search is at the moment. We know now, some 24 hours after being released accidentally from HMP Chelmsford, it's being reported today that he was supposed to be released to Home Office deportation officers, where they would be sending him on a flight back to Ethiopia. Instead, we understand, due to human error, that different paperwork was signed, releasing him on licence, handing him £76 and free out in Chelmsford. After he was released, he was seen on Chelmsford High Street speaking to people there, seemingly asking for directions in prison tracksuits and his belongings in a clear plastic bag. A man who we believe to be, it could be Mr. Kabatu. Locals there were very worried it was Mr. Kabatu seen in the video. We heard he was there for about 5 to 10 minutes before heading off to the train station, where police said he boarded a train at 12:41, which got into London at 1:18, and that is where now police believe he is. But the fact this could even happen is beggars belief. The Prime Minister is describing it as totally unacceptable, and the Deputy Prime Minister and Justice Secretary David Lammy says he's livid.
Well, I'm appalled and livid on behalf of the public that Kabatu is at large. He should be deported back to Ethiopia after the sexual assaults that he's committed. And of course, there is now a manhunt with Essex Police, the Metropolitan Police and British Transport Police looking for him. We know that he boarded a train and is at large in London. And of course, I've asked for a full investigation into what's happened, and an officer has been suspended.
Well, the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrat MP for Chelmsford calling for a full public inquiry into exactly how this could happen. This is, of course, a man convicted for sexually assaulting a woman and a 14-year-old girl. And in that sentencing, the judge described him as being at risk of reoffending. Well, he is now on the streets of Britain as this manhunt continues, last seen in the London area. Charlie.
Well, thank you very much, Will Godley, and I hope to hear more from you on this truly astonishing story throughout the rest of the day. But in breaking news now, Lucy Powell has been named as the new deputy leader of the Labour Party.
Let's have a listen to her winning speech.
Keir, as you set out at your conference speech a few weeks ago, we are now in the fight of our lives, and we really are. Not for ourselves and our fortunes, but for the future of the country and democracy. Division and hate are on the rise, discontent and disillusionment widespread. The desire for change impatient and palpable. People are looking around, looking elsewhere for the answers. And we, as the Labour Party, as the party of government, have to step forward and take this on. We have this one big chance to show that progressive, mainstream politics really can change people's lives for the better. After all, that's the belief why most of us joined the Labour Party in the first place. And the stakes really are that high. And Keir, I am here to help you in that fight as your deputy leader.
Powell won after she secured almost 14,000 more votes than Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson.
The Prime Minister said he was looking forward to working with Powell again, less than 2 months after he sacked her as Leader of the Commons.
Lucy has always been a proud defender of Labour values, and that is exactly what we need at this moment. We need to come together to defend those values, values that are not just Labour values, but also British values: decency, compassion, respect for difference, optimism about the future, and pride in all the people and communities that make this country so great.
Well, with us now to discuss this is Labour peer Lord McCabe. Now, Stephen, what do you make of that? Because to me it looked as though Lucy Powell was making some digs at the Prime Minister. He sacked her just a couple of months ago. She said that the Labour Party have allowed Nigel Farage and his ilk to run off with a political microphone. This doesn't look, at the face of it, as though it's going to be a particularly happy marriage.
Well, we'll have to see. I mean, I think it's very much in Lucy's hands now to shape what kind of deputy leader she is. To be perfectly honest, I'm not entirely sure that the wider public are that interested in the contest. And in fact, if you look at the turnout, it wasn't apparent that the broad Labour membership was either. But I think it's very much in her hands. My own view is that what Labour need at the moment is a deputy who will be loyal to the government and the Prime Minister, and who will actually do their level best.
Well, Steve, is the problem not that you might now have a leader who isn't going to be particularly loyal to the government, starting her deputy leadership with references, veiled criticism towards the leadership of the party? That's just what's going on right now already.
Well, as I say, it's in her hands to shape it. But, I mean, what we do know is that if she becomes an opposing or an alternate force within the party, it's not going to do anyone in Labour any favours. That is painfully obvious. I hope that won't be the direction she will take, but, you know, we'll have to see what happens.
Do you think there's a worry? Do you think Powell is worried that she's going to be frozen out? She hasn't been given the role of Deputy Prime Minister. Angela Rayner was given that role. And I thought it was a bit odd the way no broadcast cameras were allowed into that announcement this morning. It seems a bit as though they wanted to sweep it under the rug. Is that a sign of things to come?
I thought the cameras were, and I saw...
Sorry, no reporters.
Right, sorry, I've got you. Well, look, as I say, I really don't know. I think at the moment we'll have to wait and see what happens. It is painfully obvious that it's not going to be the same relationship that existed with Angela Rayner, nor has been the case with previous or at least some previous deputy leaders, but we'll have to see what happens. And I think the ball is very much in Lucy's court.
And Steve, obviously two very conflicting political arguments being made, I felt, by the deputy and the leader there, with Keir Starmer talking about the politics of division and grievance, saying that the Tories are trying to drag the country to a very dark place. Now, I'm sure a lot of our viewers and listeners this morning will be thinking, we've got a migrant sex attacker on the run and another just sentenced for murdering a hotel worker in the most vicious and appalling way. The country's already in a very dark dark place, isn't it, Steve McCabe? What is the Prime Minister talking about? Being taken to a very dark place. We're in crisis, and Labour leadership clearly isn't being recognised by the country as being effective or dealing with these problems.
Well, I think that what he's trying to make clear is that Labour are making changes. Some of them are taking time. We understand the things that people are distressed about, and they're right to be distressed about. But if all you can offer people is to play up their grievances rather than offer practical solutions, then you're hardly going to take us to a better place. I mean, that's fundamentally Keir Starmer's pitch. He says, give me a bit of time. I'm doing things. I'm not always getting people to recognise the progress that's being made, but that's my pitch. My opponents, in his view, are simply playing on grievances.
Thank you very much, Lord McCabe. We're going to have to leave it there, but thank you very much for joining us. And joining us now is former Conservative advisor Charlie Rowley. Now, what did you make of that, Charlie? Because it did seem a little bit strange for Lucy Powell to be standing up there and saying immigration isn't the root of all ills, when the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, is desperately trying to tackle the problem of immigration. The majority of people in this country think it is the biggest problem facing the country. And as we've been talking about, there is a migrant sex attacker on the loose in London. Is that a bit tone deaf?
Quite. And probably more than that. We've said for a long time, or how many times do we have to come on and say that Labour don't have a strategy? And they clearly don't. The turnout of this election, I think, reflects just who is fighting for the soul of the Labour Party. And it tends to be now probably that old hard-left Corbynista faction, when you can see thousands of people that voted Labour at the last election, who voted Brexit all the way back in 2016, haven't had the delivery that they asked for. They haven't been recognised in terms of their communities, in terms of the support from Westminster, from their politicians. They voted Tory in 2019. They went back to Labour in 2024. They're now looking for somebody to come and save their communities effectively, to get on top of all of the issues like immigration, illegal and legal, and that clearly hasn't been forthcoming from this government. So people have stayed at home. They've either gone to reform, or they're the ones that are left are that hard left that have now voted in someone who referred to the immigration debate as dog whistle, and as someone who, as you say, is now attacking Nigel Farage as if that isn't the problem.
So we just heard Steve McCabe talking about Sir Keir Starmer offering solutions instead of the politics of grievance and division. What do you make of that attack line? Because, of course, a lot of his proposed solutions and his delivery that Labour has been touting for the best part of a year and a half now hasn't led to solutions.
Well, who's caused the grievance? When you get a Prime Minister that gets up and says that anybody effectively protesting against hotels or people that are obviously very caring about their communities, if you brand them far right, if you just dismiss those people's concerns about immigration, illegal and legal, then you are, and as Lucy Powell referred to Tim Montgomery, is getting out his little trumpet talking about immigration.
Grooming gangs in that specific
Grooming gangs in particular, exactly. And dismissing that as dog whistle. That is the language that has come from this government. That has come from the now new deputy leader of the Labour Party.
I suppose, to be fair to Lucy Powell, you could argue that Labour have been trying to out-reform, as she puts it, for a while. They're getting serious about immigration. And actually, they are hemorrhaging votes to reform, but they are also hemorrhaging votes to far-left parties. The Greens are on the rise. In Wales, Plaid Cymru won a huge by-election victory yesterday on a almost communist manifesto, perhaps a little bit strong, but a very, very strong socialist manifesto for Plaid. So maybe there is an argument that it's time for Labour to actually tack to the left a little bit.
Well, what they've got to do is just grapple the issue. And, you can explain to the country by doing rather than just telling. So if you actually get on top of the small boats crisis, if you don't actually allow a convicted sex offender to walk the streets willy-nilly, if you get on top of the benefits bill, if you get on top of making sure that we have lower taxes in this country, that you actually deliver the growth that they stood on their manifesto platform for. If you actually maintain your promises of not not increasing national insurance contributions, which in the next budget looks like Rachel Reeves is going to have to increase income tax, something that she said she wouldn't do. All of these things You can tell I'm getting very angry about the country and the direction that we've taken, or the direction that we are being taken, because of a lack of listening, a lack of understanding, a lack of strategy by this Labour government.
There's a comment from one of our Your Say viewers, Roadrunner, saying that Powell and Starmer have one thing in common: very few people voted for them. And Charlie, that points to an issue that Labour is having at the moment. It's a lack of engagement within their own party on these issues. They're grabbing in all sorts of directions to try and get more support. Olivia and I were talking about this blue Labour faction in number 10 trying to be more socially conservative and left on economics, but at the same time there's now, Lucy Powell's going to be pushing for more of a progressive cause. It's going to be a terrible squabble trying to find out that direction, and a time for leadership, perhaps.
Exactly. Look, I don't think the Labour government have actually understood their election victory. It was a loveless landslide. People didn't turn out, and they just didn't want to vote for the Tories, and Labour were the alternative. So they've come in on that de facto way, but now they are totally divided, they are totally split, and I don't think the language from Lucy Powell, which might play to a certain faction of the Labour Party membership, is what the rest of the country is asking for, and which is why I think it's going to be continuing infighting, which I've seen a lot of in the last government.
I expect it's not helpful to Keir Starmer either. Well, thank you very much, Charlie Rowley. Still to come, a big update this morning on that grooming gangs inquiry. The Prime Minister has written to survivors saying the inquiry will look at how crimes were disproportionately committed by Asian men. More on that shortly.
Now, that's going to be a cause of controversy as well, Olivia, using that term Asian men. There's a piece in the Telegraph this week by a man from the Sikh community saying they do not appreciate that terminology. But next also there'll be some good news because Rachel Reeves is reportedly in discussion to raise the minimum living wage. Good news for some people there in her next budget. But what will it mean for businesses? We'll have more on that and some of today's top stories in our papers review.
This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live, and to look through the top stories of today, we're delighted to be joined by the Deputy Political Editor of The Spectator, James Heal, and also the trade unionist and political commentator, Andy Twelves. I think we're talking to you as we've got some fresh pictures of Lucy Powell out and about campaigning, having just become the new deputy leader of the Labour Party. There she is, making her second speech of the morning. Andy, big moment for the Labour Party. Well, I say that, barely anyone in the party voted in this deputy leadership election, but it is a moment further demonstrating the splits in the party, isn't it?
Well, even then, you know, it was 16.6% turnout. You know, she beat Bridget Phillipson by 10%, though. You know, she got, what, 45, and then Lucy got 55, which is a decent margin. You know, when we think back to the 1981 deputy leadership election, Tony Benn and Healy going at each other, that was a margin of 0.8%. So, you know, compared to historical times, significantly better. I think it's kind of quite indicative of the direction that she's going to go as a deputy leader, that her first action as the newly crowned deputy leader is out there with the activists, I assume going door knocking somewhere ahead of next year's London Borough elections in May. And I think it's sad that Angela Rayner had to go. You know, she was an institution within the party, but I think it's good to have a bit of a reset ahead of next year's May elections.
I mean, what actually is Lucy Powell going to do as Deputy Leader of the Labour Party? It's a bit of a vague, nebulous kind of a role. She's not going to be Deputy Prime Minister. Is she basically going to just be a very over-glorified door knocker?
Well, I think that's how some would like to present her as. I think it'll be interesting to see how Number 10 chooses to handle this. There was lots of briefing during the race, Olivia, that she wants to join the political cabinet, which is distinct from the cabinet meeting, which happens every Tuesday. I imagine she will now be invited in, because it would be quite a signal if she wasn't. And of course, it will just be taking a role in party strategy, party tactics. But it's up to Number 10, really. Do they choose to give her a kind of minister without portfolio sort of role, which enable her to attend meetings, get sort of government briefings? This all needs to be worked out in due course, but it'll be up to her. And I just think that Angela Rayner, due to her own charisma and her talents, was able to make something of the role and obviously demand a sort of place because she was a player. Lucy Powell, lacking that, maybe she'll become a sort of conduit to backbenchers, but it's really up to her.
And do you get a sense, just finally on this, that the speech that Lucy Powell just made is full of veiled swipes at the leadership, talking about the Treasury not managing things appropriately, talking about the party leading having a stronger sense of whose side they're on. It's quite a bold speech for someone who's been elected, as you say, on 16% turnout, and who was also recently turfed out of the cabinet, in part, I'm sure, because of her comments about grooming gangs with that trumpet comment.
I mean, I think in her speech, I think she actually gave a pretty good kind of summary of what a lot of the membership and the wider Labour movement, obviously, you know, it's not just Labour Party members that could have voted in this election, it was also the affiliate members in the socialist societies and the trade union movement that is affiliated. I think she has actually got her finger on the pulse of what a lot of people are thinking, and I think it is good to have not a dissenting voice, but at least an alternative opinion that isn't the kind of groupthink of Number 10.
On a different story, our other top story of the day, this shocking story about this sex attacker who is now on the loose in London, having been mistakenly released. The governor of the prison has been sort of ushered aside, but surely someone more senior needs to sort of pay the price for this. This is terrible, and it's really going to affect that community.
So this is the classic thing with government mess-ups, which is that who has to go? And obviously we have ministerial responsibility for stuff, and sometimes I think, you know, that's the right thing to do. It's right that they go out and take, because they get the glory, so they get the criticism as well. The problem is, of course, Olivia, is that this seems to be quite a low-level down agency operational mistake, as opposed to something done at a high level, a policy decision. So is it right that someone in Whitehall has to go because of something done? Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's a major exasperation, but you know, the government are absolutely furious on this, and they have every right to be, because it's another example of just things not working in Whitehall.
But it's... Sorry.
Go on. I mean, I think, Andy, we're looking at this coverage about this man being released yesterday. It's a complete disaster. But what was more astonishing, actually, was looking through some of the statistics on this. It's not a rare occasion. There were 262 accidental releases in our prisons in the last year, around doubling from the year before. It's an escalating problem. What is going on?
I mean, I think it speaks to the kind of system that has been inherited, from the Tory government. Not to keep blaming the Tories, as the Labour Party often do, but over those 15 years, those 6-7 years of austerity chancellors, they just consistently defunded the police, they defunded the Home Office, they defunded the prison system, and they left, this broken system and just kind of went, oh, here you go. Particularly with COVID, it just wasn't maintained properly. They decommissioned more prisons than they built, and I think that's just indicative of the problem. And David Lammy, the Justice Secretary, he was there last night, I think, saying he should be deported. This isn't a policy issue. This is an operational mess up, and I think it is really hard to blame the ministers when it is just a manpower issue.
Why wasn't he deported more quickly? Because that's what Chris Philp has been saying. Why wasn't he just sent away straight away and in a detention centre?
Well, I mean, this is again the issue of the justice system, is that we are unable to deport people quickly, and I think the idea of being like to get as soon as they're sort of arrested, put them through. But unfortunately, there's all these legal challenges, and also just the system takes a long time to work. The wheels of justice turn slowly, and it's right that he should have been, but of course, it's just going to be one of those things where I'm sure there'll be some kind of ministerial inquiry, or urgent question in the House next week, and we'll find out more detail.
And do you get the sense, with all these systemic crises surrounding how the state operates, that this government sort of resisting, as they describe as sort of people dragging us into a dark place by promising bold solutions, aren't necessarily in a great place to provide their own solutions? They don't want to fundamentally change how many of these systems work. Obviously, the Prime Minister resisting calls to leave the ECHR, for example, which would possibly allow for a much faster deportation of Ethiopian sex attackers who broke into the country illegally.
In theory, yes, but that would be on the premise that the appeals or whatever wouldn't be upheld in British courts, which they probably would. The whole ECHR thing is this kind of bizarre idea that Farage has ran with and hasn't really thought about that much. And he's saying this is going to fix it all. But even if we did leave the ECHR, that would take years to do. This is a problem that's going to rattle on for years and years and years. I think this idea of, well, we'll just leave it is quite flippant and just not realistic.
Well, I think it's what quite a lot of people in the country are calling for, but it might not fix all of the problems, as you say, Andy. Anyway, thank you, James Heal and Andy Twells. Lots more to come on the show, including the latest on the grooming gangs inquiry, with the Prime Minister writing a letter to survivors. But first, let's get the news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Good morning. The headlines from the GB newsroom at 11:34. Police are continuing their search for an asylum seeker and convicted sex offender after he was released from prison by mistake. Hadush Kabati was jailed last month after sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl and a woman. Lucy Powell says it's a huge privilege to be elected as deputy leader of the Labour Party and will try to wrestle back the political megaphone from Nigel Farage and Reform UK. Cross-party MPs are warning the Chancellor against halving the cash ISA tax-free allowance to £10,000 at next month's budget, describing the move as clumsy and ineffective. And parents in the UK are being urged to vaccinate their children against flu over a half-term, as health officials are warning of a rise in cases. You're up to date. I'll have more for you in half an hour.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Yes, coming up, an astonishing story about graffiti in London, with the TfL boss accused of lying by a campaign group. You'll want to hear more about that.
And elsewhere, breaking news this morning, Sir Keir Starmer has written a letter to grooming gang victims on the panel, urging them that he will focus the inquiry on what he describes as Asian gangs being disproportionately represented in some areas. We'll get all reaction to that coming up next on Saturday Morning Live. Stay with us.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. A cold day out there today. Northerly winds, quite brisk with some scattered showers. Showers falling as snow over the Scottish mountains. And we can see that on the pressure pattern. Low pressure to the east, high pressure to the west, and a northerly airstream across the UK. So a chilly start out there, and then through the day there'll be plenty of sunny spells, but in the northerly flow there'll be showers as well. Showers most frequent across northern and western parts of the UK. Some of the showers could be heavy. The odd rumble of thunder is possible, and they will fall as snow over the Scottish mountains. Cold temperatures in single figures for much of the north of the UK, 12 or 13 perhaps across some sheltered southern parts of England. Into this evening time, if we zoom into Scotland, we can see frequent showers pushing in from the north. These fall falling as snow over the higher ground, some rumbles of thunder possible, but sheltered parts in the south of Scotland having a dry end to the day. Plenty of showers across Northern Ireland, some sunshine ahead of dusk across parts of northern and eastern England, but frequent showers for Wales and southwest England too. Again, some of these on the heavy side at times. The wind's brisk, some large waves around the coasts, and then showers continuing through the evening and overnight to push southwards. Under the clearest skies, particularly across central and eastern parts, where winds fall light, we'll see temperatures drop away. Towns and cities mid to low single figures, the countryside getting close to zero, so a touch of frost is possible. But around the coast, and particularly in the north and the west, where we continue to see showers, it should be frost-free. So chilly start to Sunday, but it's all change. A weather system starts moving in from the northwest, some outbreaks of rain pushing into Scotland, Northern Ireland, eventually pushing its way southeastwards. But with the clock change, we won't see the rain arriving into the southeast until nearer the end of the day, when it starts to get dark, and temperatures generally around 9 to 12 Celsius.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show. It's not a bad brand. Yeah. Uncensored. Very, very racy tonight. On the unpredictable. What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. Now, a law firm representing several women involved in the government's grooming gangs inquiry, they've written a letter to the Home Office with several concerns about the process.
And Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has now sent a letter to the survivors in the inquiry panel admitting crimes were disproportionately committed by Asian men.
Well, joining us now is the director and solicitor at Switolski's, David Greenwood, behind that letter sent to the Home Office. David, thank you very much for joining us on Saturday Morning Live. You sent a list of several concerns to the government. One was explicitly about concerns about the broadening of the scope of the inquiry. And in this letter now from the Prime Minister, he says it will have a focus, but he's appeared to have given himself some wiggle room there.
I haven't seen the letter. I apologise. But my clients were concerned that this inquiry was going to be broadened out to look at other types of abuse when back in January and then June, well, in June actually, to be all about the regular street grooming by Asian men of Pakistani descent.
Why is it so important, just in your words, David Greenwood, knowing these women as you do, for them that this inquiry isn't broadened out, that it is so specifically on these Asian grooming gangs?
Well, you've got to remember that they were in it for, varying lengths of time, but sometimes years. They've experienced all this. They've seen it going on not just to themselves, but to countless other that they were associated with at the time. They see it as a significant issue, very significant issue in towns and cities around the country. It's very important for them. It's very important for the country also to get a handle on what's been going on, and if it's possible to work out how to stop it. So they don't want it diluting. It was as a grooming gangs inquiry. That's what it should be, so far as they're concerned.
And David, you're also representing Fiona Goddard. Your firm, Switolski's, has written a letter urging Jess Phillips to provide an apology after Fiona and other survivors said they felt like Jess Phillips was saying that they were lying with those concerns about the widening of the scope? Because, of course, as you and I both knew, they were approached in September with that question. Do you want the scope widened? Do you expect that the Minister will provide that apology? And how important is it that she does so?
Look, I don't want to go into to that issue. I've said all I need to say in consultation with Fiona in the letter. I really don't want to comment on that. But suffice it to say that, yeah, everything's said in the letter there.
Thank you very much, David Greenwood, for speaking to us this morning. And Charlie, obviously, you've been following the story very, very closely for a number of years. Jess Phillips is in the firing line here. Survivors are saying that they won't rejoin the inquiry unless she is sacked from her job. Is it time for her to go, or does this letter from the Prime Minister sort of smooth that row over a bit?
Well, I've just been speaking to another solicitor called Richard Scorer. He represents Slater and Gordon, head of abuse law there, and he's concerned that this letter from the Prime Minister doesn't actually specifically commit to that focus that so many members of the panel are worried about. We've also got another member of this panel who has remained on the panel, desperately wants this inquiry to go ahead, but has also called on Jess Phillips to resign. So regardless of the views of the government and whether or not they are going to commit to this specific focus, which clearly is what Baroness Casey wants. She called it, her audit earlier this year was into group-based child sexual exploitation and abuse, brackets, grooming gangs. Couldn't be more clear what she was referring to. But then at the same time, you've got people on a panel asking for it to be widened, serious questions about how that was organised as well.
We're now 4 months on from that Baroness Casey review. She said that she wanted this inquiry to be done quickly, and yet here we are, and we still haven't even decided what the scope of the inquiry is going to be. Would it be too cynical to suggest that perhaps the government is dragging its feet deliberately on this? They're hoping that this all sort of manages to play out before an election takes place.
The government has resisted very strongly those claims, and I think a problem that Jess Phillips and the government have got is that they included that rejection as part of the wider rejection of the claim that they were widening the scope, saying it was misinformation and untrue. Now, a lot of survivors heard that and thought, well, we have those concerns because you've asked us about that. The charity organising the panel asked them, do you want the scope to be widened? So I am surprised that she hasn't apologised, actually, because so many survivors need to have that trust that this inquiry process is taking them seriously. And if a minister makes suggestions that they were lying about something when they've got proof, and when we saw it over a month ago, it's just very strange that the minister hasn't apologised and at least just said, look, I didn't know about that widening scope, etc. But of course she did. She saw the message herself.
It is a very, very odd story. But a Home Office spokesperson said the grooming gang scandal was one of the darkest moments in this country's history. That is why this government is committed to a full statutory national inquiry to uncover the truth. It is the very least that the victims and survivors of these hideous crimes deserve.
The Home Secretary has been clear there will be no hiding place for those who abuse the most vulnerable in our society. GBNews have also reached out to the Prime Minister for a comment on that new letter released today.
Still to come, Transport for London have found themselves caught in a fresh row about graffiti on our tubes.
Ago, LFG volunteers cleaned the tube because TfL refused to do so. So, what did TfL do?
Firstly, would ask anybody not to take this matter into their own hands.
Well, they say that TfL boss Andy Lord allegedly lied when he told the London Assembly that volunteers who had cleaned graffiti off the tube, get this, they spray painted it on themselves. Well, the campaign group LFG, looking for growth, they'll join us to talk about the row.
This is Saturday Morning Live, only on GB News.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's the start of half-term for many of us, but I'm afraid there's showers and some longer spells of rain in the forecast, particularly across parts of Iberia and southeastern Europe. Portugal and Spain could see some showers as we head through into Sunday. These could be heavy, possibly thundery. A mix of sunshine and showers elsewhere across northern parts of Europe, but it is going to be feeling much cooler than of late. Some brighter spells across southern parts of France, northern Europe, but elsewhere it is going to remain unsettled. More sunshine into next week, as well as some warm temperatures.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
360,000 people are without a home, thousands of whom are on the street, but most are living in terrible, terrible conditions, bed-sits, awful B&Bs above rows of shops and hostels. 160,000 of those are children. Can you imagine trying to perform at school or in your job? And this is a crisis, Dawn, and it costs billions. That's the worst thing. We spend about £4 billion a year dealing with this, and it's just getting worse and worse.
Well, let's talk about those 160,000 children, because that's the thing that affected me when I read it this morning. Couldn't believe the numbers of children that are homeless in this country. How is this happening, Andy?
What's happening, Ellie? It's complex, but the biggest single issue, the simplest issue, is that we do not have enough homes. We don't build enough. To put it really simply, if you have a population of 10 people and you have 9 homes, somebody is going to be without a home, and that's what we've got. So when we don't build enough, somebody loses out. It's gone on for decades, by the way. Somebody loses out, and it's always going to be the poorest. It's the people who live the most chaotic lives, or have the least money, are going to be at that bottom and falling out of it. And it's absolute chaos. Ellie, the worst thing about this, it's really fixable. We can get people off the streets. We can create the medium-term accommodation to transition people from the streets, from shelters, into more permanent places. We can do this by reprioritising some of the 2.8 billion. We spend 2.8 billion quid just sticking people into really expensive overnight B&Bs. As I say, awful, crummy places above kebab shops where kids are growing up for months on end and struggling with lack of space. We can fix it, but there just isn't the political will.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. Now, Transport for London boss Andy Lord allegedly lied when he told the London Assembly that volunteers who had cleaned graffiti off the tube had spray painted it on themselves.
Now, the campaign group Looking for Growth have accused Mr Lord of making the whole thing up when he said that TfL had evidence of people creating graffiti and then removing it. Well, joining us now is the campaigner at Looking for Growth, Dr Lawrence Newport. Lawrence, thank you very much for joining us this morning. You put in a set of FOIs about this case, didn't you? Because Mr Lord said that evidence had been passed on to the relevant authorities. What evidence had been passed on, and to which authorities?
Well, these were both questions that we asked. What evidence did he have that our volunteers had graffitied the tube in order to then clean it off themselves? And which authorities did he send this evidence to? The response we got was that there was no information held by TfL on this, aka there was no evidence and there were no authorities alerted to it because they had no evidence to give over.
I mean, it's a very strange accusation, isn't it? Because anyone walking around London can see there is plenty of graffiti. Surely there would be no need to daub any graffiti on anywhere yourselves. What are you looking for from Andy Lord now? Are you calling for his resignation? Would an apology suffice? What are you after?
I mean, firstly, you're exactly correct, which is actually exactly why we were down there cleaning the graffiti. It is a horrid mess and actually a very easily solvable problem. It can just be wiped away. And yet our several lines on the underground are completely caked in graffiti now as well, over the windows, so you can't even sometimes see which station you're actually pulling into. It is something that TfL spends £130 million a year on, and this is something that Looking for Growth we were trying to bring attention to. And TfL's response was, of course, to lie and slander our volunteers. who are doing the work they should be doing. What we are doing is demanding that he says sorry. It is as simple as that. Says sorry and joins us on our next tube clean.
Lawrence, do you think you embarrassed TfL with this video showing that you were cleaning up the graffiti when others were? And do you think it was basically that sense of embarrassment and perhaps even a sense also of pride that led to this allegation? Because it really is quite an astonishing claim that they had evidence that you were applying the graffiti yourself. And of course, on the screen right now, it says, we do not hold any recorded information of this because, of course, there was no evidence.
Yeah, this is, I think, the easiest explanation here is that they were embarrassed, that it's something that they were caught out on, that it is the case that we spend about £130 million a year on cleaning the tube, and it's still horrendous, it's still dirty, it's still graffiti laden, and this is something that Andy Lord paid about £640,000 last year, should be ensuring it's done, and we made very, very clear this isn't happening, and so he simply did what many times we see in our political system, lashed out, smeared, and just tried to cover it up.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Lawrence Newport. If it has been you daubing graffiti all over London, then you have been a very busy man indeed.
All right, Lawrence, thank you so much for your time this morning. Hopefully speak soon when he's next on the tube, applying and then removing that graffiti. Well, a TfL spokesperson said in response the commissioner was making reference to information that he had been made aware of verbally and of work being undertaken within TfL as part of our wider graffiti reduction strategy, which aims to prevent and tackle graffiti vandalism. So it was a verbal bit of information given, hence why there was no record of it. Well, there we go. Very interesting story there from Looking for Growth and Lawrence. And thank you also, all of you, for joining us on Saturday Morning Live today. It's been a packed show, hasn't it, Olivia?
Really busy show, and I'm fascinated to see what happens with the fallout from this Labour leadership deputy election today. What is the relationship going to be like between Powell and Starmer?
Yeah, lots of questions to come there, but thankfully we have the chieftain of 12 to 3 coming up. It's the one and only Dawn Neeson, who will be organising many a row, I'm sure, to come on that political nightmare. But also, Dawn, the ongoing manhunt in this city for a migrant sex attacker who's escaped from prison.
Yeah, we are covering that story. The net is closing in, evidently, so we'll have as much on that story as we possibly can live every cough and spit of that. You don't want to miss it. We have also got a cracking story about young love, which I think is quite sweet. And we are also talking about bacon. If you are eating a bacon sarnie for your brunch, I want you to step away from it right now, because we've got some very interesting news on why bacon is a no-no. It's a fun-packed show, lots to talk about. Don't want to miss it. All after the weather. See you then.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. A cold day out there today. Northerly winds, quite brisk with some scattered showers. Showers falling as snow over the Scottish mountains. And we can see that on the pressure pattern. Low pressure to the east, high pressure to the west, and a northerly airstream across the UK. So a chilly start out there. And then through the day, there'll be plenty of sunny spells, but in the northerly flow, there'll be showers as well. Showers most frequent across northern and western parts of the UK. Some of the showers could be heavy. The odd rumble of thunder is possible, and they will fall as snow over the Scottish mountains. Cold temperatures in single figures for much of the north of the UK, 12 or 13 perhaps across some sheltered southern parts of England. Into this evening time, if we zoom into Scotland, we can see frequent showers pushing in from the north. These falling as snow over the higher ground. Some rumbles of thunder possible, but sheltered parts in the south of Scotland having a dry end to the day. Plenty of showers across Northern Ireland, some sunshine ahead of dusk across parts of northern and eastern England, but frequent showers for Wales and southwest England too. Again, some of these on the heavy side at times. The wind's brisk, some large waves around the coasts, and then showers continue